The wedding ring struck the marble step once, spun in a bright circle beneath the altar, and fell flat at the feet of the man who had not been meant to touch it. 200 guests watched in silence as the bridegroom walked out of the chapel without looking back. He did not apologize. He did not explain. He simply left the woman he had promised to marry standing beneath an arch of white roses, while the organist's hands hovered uselessly above the keys. Eleanor Vale stood perfectly still. Her veil trembled in the draft from the open doors, but her face did not. Across the aisle, ladies lowered their eyes. Gentlemen found sudden interest in the carved saints along the walls. At the front pew, Eleanor's aunt pressed a handkerchief to her mouth, not from sorrow, but from the dreadful awareness that everyone important in the county had witnessed the ruin of the family's last hope. Then Nathaniel Ashcombe, younger brother to the vanished bridegroom, bent and picked up the ring. He held it between two fingers for a long moment, studying the small gold circle as though it contained an answer no one else could see. Eleanor finally looked at him. Nathaniel had always been the quiet brother, the second son, the man people greeted after they had greeted everyone who mattered. He was dressed in dark formal clothes, one hand bare because he had removed his glove before lifting the ring. There was no pity in his expression. Pity Eleanor could not have borne. There was anger, carefully controlled, and beneath it something older, something that made her heart stumble even in the middle of humiliation. Nathaniel closed his hand around the ring. "This does not belong on the floor," he said. His voice was not loud, but in the chapel's terrible silence it carried to every pew. The abandoned bride looked at the open doors, through which his brother had disappeared. "Neither do I," she answered. Then she lifted her skirts and walked down the aisle alone. No one tried to stop her. No one knew what to say. Behind her, the white roses shook in the winter wind. The candles burned steadily, and Nathaniel Ashcombe stood at the altar holding the ring his brother had thrown away. Before the month was over, that ring would expose a theft, uncover a lie buried for 20 years, and force one brother to choose between the name he had inherited and the woman the family had sacrificed to preserve it. But on that cold morning, all Eleanor knew was that she had been left before God, society, and everyone who had ever doubted her. She made it through the chapel doors. She crossed the gravel courtyard. She reached the waiting carriage. Only when the footman opened the door did her knees begin to fail. Nathaniel reached her before she fell. His hand closed around her elbow, firm and warm. "Do not," she whispered. "Do not be kind to me where they can see." He glanced back at the chapel. The guests had begun to spill through the doors in cautious clusters, drawn by scandal the way birds are drawn to newly turned earth. "They have seen enough cruelty for one morning," he said. "Let them see something else." Eleanor almost laughed. It came out as a breath with no joy in it. "Your brother has made me a public lesson. My brother has made himself one. That is not how the world will tell it. Then the world will be wrong." Nathaniel helped her into the carriage. He did not climb in beside her. He stood outside with the door open, shielding her from the watching crowd with his body. "Where shall I tell the driver to take you?" he asked. The question should have been simple. It was not. Eleanor had come to the chapel from Bracken House, the small estate belonging to her aunt, where every room had been prepared for her return as a married woman who would never return. Her trunks had already been sent to Ashcombe Hall. Her own childhood home had been sold years ago to settle her father's debts. She had no house, no husband, no position, and by evening she would have no reputation untouched by rumor. Her aunt appeared at the carriage, pale with fury. "Back to Brackenhouse," Lady Morrow said. "At once, before this grows worse." Eleanor looked at the woman who had raised her for 10 years and understood from the stiffness of her mouth that the disgrace was not Eleanor's pain, but Eleanor's failure to secure the match. "Yes," Eleanor said quietly, "before it grows worse." Nathaniel's eyes moved from one woman to the other. He saw too much. He always had. Lady Morrow did not thank him for helping. She climbed into the carriage, gathered her skirts, and sat as far from Eleanor as the seat permitted. Nathaniel closed the door. Just before he did, he placed something in Eleanor's gloved palm. The ring, her fingers closed by instinct. "Why are you giving me this?" she asked. "Because it was given to you," he said. "And because my brother no longer deserves to decide what happens to it." The door shut. The carriage rolled away. Eleanor looked down at the ring in her hand. It was not the ring the family had first shown her 6 months earlier. That one had been an elaborate Ashcombe heirloom, heavy with diamonds and history. This was a plain gold band engraved inside with a line so small she had never noticed it before. She turned it toward the window and read 4 words. "What is freely chosen?" The rest of the inscription was hidden beneath her thumb. She shifted the ring. "Must not be stolen." Eleanor stared at the words until the chapel vanished behind the trees. Across from her, Lady Morrow spoke without looking at her. "You will not cry." Eleanor closed her fist around the ring. "No." "You will not speak to reporters." "No." "You will not write to him." Eleanor's throat tightened. "No." "And you will remember that whatever foolishness has occurred, your conduct now will determine whether any respectable family receives you again." Eleanor turned toward the window. The winter fields moved past in shades of gray and brown. "My conduct," she repeated. "Naturally." Lady Morrow heard the edge in her voice and stiffened. "Do not become insolent because you have been disappointed." Disappointed. As though the bridegroom had forgotten flowers. As though he had not vanished before vows, guests, clergy, and the entire county. Eleanor looked at the ring again. "What is freely chosen must not be stolen." She wondered who had placed those words inside a wedding band belonging to a family that had just taken everything from her. At Ashcombe Hall, Nathaniel found his brother's rooms empty. The fire still burned. A half-packed trunk stood open near the bed. On the writing desk lay 3 torn envelopes, a glass of untouched brandy, and a note addressed not to Eleanor but to Nathaniel. He opened it standing beneath the portrait of their late father. "Nat, forgive the spectacle. I could not go through with it. Tell Mother I have gone abroad. Tell Eleanor whatever seems kindest. Burn this." Nathaniel read the note twice. Then he held it to the fire. He did not release it. The flame reached his fingers before he dropped the burning corner into the grate. Whatever seems kindest. His brother had always believed kindness was a phrase one could assign to another person after committing the cruelty oneself. The door opened behind him. The Dowager Countess of Ashcombe entered without knocking. She wore black silk, diamonds, and the expression of a woman who had spent her entire life arranging the world and resented its occasional refusal to remain arranged. "Where is he?" she asked. Nathaniel did not turn. "Gone." "Gone where?" "Abroad, he claims." "Claims? He left a note." She crossed the room. "Give it to me." "It is burned." Her gaze moved to the grate, then to Nathaniel's reddened fingers. "You had no right. Neither did he." Do not moralize at me today. The family is facing catastrophe. Nathaniel laughed once without humor. A woman was abandoned at the altar, Mother. And that is unfortunate. Unfortunate. Do not twist my words. I am thinking beyond one morning. There are settlements, contracts, newspapers, creditors, political alliances. Your brother's marriage was meant to secure more than domestic happiness. Nathaniel faced her then. That, he said softly, may be why he ran. Something changed in her expression. It was there only a moment, a small withdrawal behind the eyes. Nathaniel noticed. What have you not told me? He asked. This is not the hour for your suspicions. It seems precisely the hour. She moved toward the trunk, inspecting its contents. Your brother has always been impulsive. He will return when he understands what he has done. And Eleanor? Miss Vale will be compensated. The word struck harder than Nathaniel expected. Compensated. Generously. For humiliation? For inconvenience. He stared at her. You knew. Lady Ashcombe became very still. Knew what? That he intended to leave. Do not be absurd. You were not surprised in the chapel. I was trained from birth not to perform emotion in public. And yet you were watching Eleanor before the doors opened, not him, Eleanor. You imagine too much. I have spent 30 years in this family. Imagination has rarely been necessary. She turned away. The ring, she said. Where is it? Nathaniel's attention sharpened. Why? It belongs to Ashcombe. He dropped it. It is still family property. I gave it to Eleanor. Lady Ashcombe's face lost color. Not much. Enough. You did what? I returned it to the woman who was meant to receive it. You will go to Bracken House and retrieve it immediately. No. Nathaniel, why does a plain gold ring concern you more than your eldest son's disappearance? She closed the distance between them. Because you do not know what you have done. Then tell me. Her mouth tightened. Bring it back. Tell me what is inside it. For the first time in Nathaniel's life, his mother looked afraid of him. It was not fear of violence. He had never given her cause for that. It was fear of the question itself. An inscription, she said. Nothing more. What is freely chosen must not be stolen. The words left his mouth slowly. Her hand moved against her skirt. A small movement. A betrayal. Nathaniel saw it. Who chose them? He asked. Your grandmother. No. Grandmother's marriage was arranged before she could read. Then your father. Father considered choice a youthful disease. Enough. She turned toward the door. Retrieve the ring. No. You will obey me. I am not 12. No, Lady Ashcombe said, glancing back. You are the second son. Do not mistake your brother's temporary absence for an invitation to become the first. She left him alone with the open trunk and the portrait of a dead man who had never once looked at either of his sons with kindness. Nathaniel stood very still. Then he crossed to the writing desk and began examining the torn envelopes. At Bracken House, the wedding breakfast had been laid out for guests who never arrived. Silver platters crowded the dining room table. A tower of sugared fruit stood beneath the chandelier. 6 footmen waited in silence while Lady Morrow walked through the room ordering everything removed before the servants could see too much. The servants had seen everything already. Servants always did. Eleanor went upstairs without removing her veil. Her bedroom had been stripped of its familiar objects that morning because the room was to become a guest chamber after her marriage. The books were boxed. The wardrobe was empty. Even the small watercolor of her father's house had been wrapped in brown paper. She sat at the dressing table and studied her reflection. A bride remained in the glass. White satin, pearls, veil. A woman dressed for a future that no longer existed. She reached up and pulled the pins from her hair one by one. With each pin, the careful arrangement loosened. By the time the veil slid to the floor, her hair had fallen around her shoulders. A knock sounded. "Come in?" Mara, the housemaid who had served Eleanor since girlhood, entered carrying a tray of tea. She took one look at Eleanor and began to cry. Eleanor had not cried. The sight of someone doing it for her nearly undid her. "Please don't," she whispered. Mara set down the tray and pressed both hands to her apron. "I'm sorry, miss. I'm so sorry." Eleanor looked at the untouched tea. "Did everyone see?" "Yes, miss. Of course they did. But no one blames you." Eleanor smiled faintly. "By supper they will. Not anyone worth minding." It was the sort of thing a loyal servant said because loyalty could not change the facts. Eleanor removed her gloves. The ring lay in her palm, warm now from being held. Mara noticed it. "He gave it back?" "His brother did." "Mr. Nathaniel?" "Yes." Mara leaned closer. "That is not the engagement ring." "No. I saw the other one when the jeweler came. It had stones." Eleanor turned the band. "This one has words." Mara read the inscription. Her expression changed. "Miss." "What?" "May I see the edge?" Eleanor handed it to her. Mara held it near the lamp and ran a thumbnail along the outer rim. "There's a seam." "A seam?" "My father repaired watches. Some mourning rings have compartments." She pressed gently. Nothing happened. She tried turning the band against itself. A soft click sounded. The ring separated into two narrow circles joined by a hidden hinge. Inside, between the layers of gold, was a tightly rolled strip of paper. Eleanor and Mara looked at each other. "That," Mara whispered, "is not a normal wedding ring." Eleanor carefully removed the paper. It was old, thin, and covered in faded writing. Only a few lines remained legible. "To the child born of my lawful marriage, I leave the eastern lands, the river mills, and all income attached thereto, independent of any husband or guardian." The final line was torn. Beneath it stood a signature Eleanor recognized from letters locked away among her father's effects. Beatrice Vale Ashcombe, her mother's name. Eleanor stopped breathing. Her mother had been Beatrice Vale, not Ashcombe. She had died when Eleanor was 5, and no one had ever spoken of any connection between the families. Yet here was her signature inside the Ashcombe wedding ring, joined to words about a lawful marriage and a child. Mara's face had gone pale. "Miss Eleanor." "Close the door." Mara hurried to obey. Eleanor read the fragment again. "To the child born of my lawful marriage." Her hands began to shake. "My father's papers," she said. "The boxes from the old house. Where are they?" "In the attic, miss. Her ladyship said they were to be burned after the wedding." Eleanor stood so quickly the chair struck the wall. "Take me to them." The attic smelled of dust, old wood, and rain that had found its place beneath the roof. Mara carried a lamp while Eleanor searched among trunks marked with her father's initials. Most were empty. Lady Morrow had sold anything valuable years earlier. At the bottom of a narrow chest, they found a bundle of letters tied with a black ribbon, a ledger missing its cover, and a sealed envelope addressed to Eleanor in her father's hand. She stared at it. "Why have I never seen this?" Mara did not answer. She did not need to. The envelope had been hidden beneath a false panel. Eleanor broke the seal. "My dearest girl, if you are reading this, then either I have finally found the courage to tell you the truth, or death has done what cowardice prevented. Your mother was married before she married me. The first marriage was secret but lawful. She believed her husband dead when she became my wife. She discovered too late that he lived. You were born before that discovery. I raised you as mine because in every way that mattered you were mine, and because the man whose blood you carry chose inheritance over truth. He belonged to a powerful family. They paid for silence. I accepted their protection for your sake, and despised myself for it every day afterward. Your mother left proof. I hid it because proof can protect, but it can also summon those who fear it. Trust no one who seeks the ring. Trust the man who returns it without asking what it is worth." Eleanor lowered the letter. The attic seemed to move beneath her. Nathaniel had returned the ring. He had not known its worth. He had not asked. Mara read the final line over her shoulder and crossed herself. Who was her first husband? Eleanor unfolded the second page. The ink had run where water had touched it, but one name remained. Edmund Ashcombe, the late Earl of Ashcombe, Nathaniel's father. Eleanor sat down hard on the floorboards. Edmund Ashcombe had married Nathaniel's mother nearly 30 years ago. Eleanor was 24. If her mother's marriage had been lawful and still valid when Eleanor was born, then Edmund's later marriage might not have been. The implications unfolded with terrible slowness. The title, the estate, the brothers, the legitimacy of every inheritance made after Edmund's death. She looked at the ring. It had not been selected for her wedding. It had been planted there. Someone had intended it to reach her. Someone else had been desperate to recover it. Downstairs, Lady Morrow was instructing the butler to deny every caller. Eleanor folded the letter and slipped it into her bodice. "We must put everything back," she said. "Why?" Mara asked. "Because my aunt planned to burn these papers today. If she discovers they are missing, she will know I have read them." "You think she knew?" Eleanor remembered Lady Morrow's fury in the carriage, her insistence on silence, her complete absence of surprise at the groom's disappearance. "I think everyone knew something except me." They returned the boxes to their places and carried only the ring, the letter, and the fragment of testament downstairs concealed beneath Mara's apron. Before they reached Eleanor's room, voices sounded in the corridor. Lady Morrow and a man. "You assured me the ring would be recovered at the chapel." The man's voice was low, controlled, unfamiliar. "I could hardly crawl beneath the altar in front of 200 people," Lady Morrow snapped. "Nathaniel picked it up and gave it to her. How was I to know he would interfere?" Eleanor touched Mara's arm and drew her into the linen closet. Through the narrow crack, they saw Lady Morrow standing with Sir Gideon Pell, the Ashcombe family solicitor. Eleanor had met him twice. He was a smooth-faced man who spoke as though every sentence had already been entered into evidence. "The wedding should never have proceeded," he said. "The wedding was the only safe solution. Once she married the heir, any claim she possessed would be absorbed into the family settlement, provided she never learned of it. She would not have." "And now?" Lady Morrow asked. "Now the elder brother is gone. The younger brother has placed the evidence in her hands, and you have failed to secure her father's papers. They are in the attic. Are you certain? I checked them yesterday. Check again. Footsteps approached. Eleanor and Mara pressed against the shelves as Lady Morrow passed the closet door. Sir Gideon followed. His words drifted back along the corridor. If she has opened the ring, we have very little time. Eleanor waited until the voices disappeared. Then she stepped from the closet. Pack a small bag, she told Mara. We are leaving. Where will we go? To the only man my father's letter told me to trust. Nathaniel arrived at Bracken House just before dusk and was told Eleanor was indisposed. He remained on the front step. Then I shall wait. The butler hesitated. Her ladyship is not receiving visitors. I did not come to see her ladyship. Mr. Ashcombe, I have my orders. Nathaniel looked past him into the hall. 2 traveling cloaks were missing from the pegs. A trunk stood half-concealed near the servants' passage. Where is Miss Vale? Resting. With her boots? The butler glanced down the corridor. Nathaniel stepped inside. You may tell Lady Morrow I forced my way in. She will enjoy repeating it. He found Eleanor in the morning room wearing a plain dark dress, her wedding clothes gone. A small case rested beside her chair. Mara stood near the window. Eleanor looked as though years had passed since the chapel, though it had been fewer than 10 hours. You came, she said. My mother ordered me to retrieve the ring. Eleanor's fingers closed over it through the fabric of her sleeve. And will you? No. Some of the tension left her face. Not all. Why did you come? Because my brother left you before an audience. My mother is frightened of a piece of gold, and our solicitor has removed 3 letters from my brother's desk. Eleanor looked toward the door. Close it. He did. Lock it. He obeyed. She took out the ring and placed it on the table between them. It opens. Nathaniel stared at the narrow seam, then at the paper beside it. He read the fragment without touching it. His expression remained controlled until he reached the signature. Then something in him went still. Where did you find this? Inside the ring. And the letter? She gave him her father's final message. Nathaniel read slowly. When he finished, he did not speak for a long time. Outside, carriage wheels sounded on the drive. Eleanor watched his face. Say something. My father, he said at last, was rarely away from Ashcombe before his marriage. There is a year in the family records when he traveled under another name. I found references while cataloging the estate library. The pages had been cut from his journal. You believe this? I believe my mother threatened to disown me rather than explain why she wanted that ring. I believe Sir Gideon took letters from my brother's desk before I could read them. And I believe your father's warning described precisely what I did, without knowing why. He folded the letter along its old lines. Trust the man who returns it without asking what it is worth. Eleanor met his eyes. Did you know my mother? No. Did your brother? I do not know what my brother knew. He left because of this. Perhaps. Or because he never wanted me. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Both can be true. It was not kind, but it was honest. Eleanor found she preferred the pain of honesty to the softness of lies. Sir Gideon is here, Mara said from the window, and Lady Ashcombe. Nathaniel crossed to the curtain. A black carriage had stopped beside the steps. They came together, he said. That is useful. Useful? Eleanor asked. People make mistakes when they believe they have arrived before the truth. He turned to Mara. Is there another way out? The kitchen passage leads to the stable yard. Good. Pack the documents. Eleanor did not move. I will not run from my own aunt in my own house. This is not your house. The words came from the doorway. Lady Morrow stood there with Lady Ashcombe and Sir Gideon behind her. The lock had not held. An old servant's key remained in the mechanism. Lady Morrow's gaze fell immediately to the ring. Give me that. Eleanor rose. Why? Because it is not yours. It was placed in my hand by a foolish man who did not understand its significance. Nathaniel stepped beside Eleanor. Then explain its significance. Lady Ashcombe entered and closed the door. Nathaniel, leave us. No. This is a family matter. Eleanor looked at her. Apparently, I am family. Silence. Sir Gideon recovered first. Miss Vale, you have been subjected to a distressing day. It would be unwise to draw conclusions from damaged papers of uncertain origin. You knew there were papers. I assumed. You told my aunt to burn them. His expression did not change. You were listening at doors. People speak freely when they believe the woman they have deceived is upstairs weeping. Lady Morrow's face sharpened. Do not take that tone with me. What tone should an illegitimate charity case use upon discovering she may be the lawful daughter of the man whose family has controlled her life? You are not his lawful daughter, Lady Ashcombe said. The words came too quickly. Eleanor heard certainty, but not truth. Nathaniel heard it too. Then why fear the ring, he asked. Son. Lady Ashcombe looked at him. Because scandal does not require truth, only paper. And the marriage? Eleanor asked. Was my wedding intended to bury my claim? Lady Morrow crossed the room. Your wedding was intended to protect you, by binding me to the man whose inheritance I might challenge, by giving you rank, security, and a name beyond reproach. I already had a name, a ruined one. The cruelty was familiar, but for the first time Eleanor saw what had lived beneath it all these years. Fear. Lady Morrow had not kept her because of charity. She had kept her because Eleanor's existence was an unpaid debt. You knew my mother's first husband lived, Eleanor said. Your father knew as well. The man who raised me knew. The man who abandoned my mother knew. Everyone knew except the child whose life depended upon it. You were 5 when she died, Lady Morrow snapped. What would you have done with the truth? Grown up inside it instead of beneath your lies. Sir Gideon stepped forward. This conversation is becoming unproductive. Miss Vale, surrender the ring and documents. In return, the Ashcombe family is prepared to provide a substantial independent settlement and a residence abroad. Eleanor almost smiled. Compensation. Nathaniel looked at his mother. You used that word this morning. Lady Ashcombe's voice was cold. Do not be dramatic. You tried to purchase silence before asking what she wanted. What she wants is irrelevant to the legal facts. Then let us examine the legal facts, Nathaniel said. Sir Gideon's gaze shifted to him. You have no standing in this matter. I am allegedly the second son of a marriage that may never have been valid. Lady Ashcombe flinched as though he had struck her. Nathaniel saw it and regretted the pain, but not the question. Did father marry Beatrice Vale? He asked. He was young, Lady Ashcombe said. That is not an answer. He believed the ceremony invalid. Why? Because it was performed privately. Private is not invalid. The clergyman had no permission from the family. Family permission is not the law. Sir Gideon intervened. The record was never entered. Eleanor held up the strip of testament. Then why did someone hide this in a ring? Because your mother was unstable, Lady Ashcombe said. Do not. Eleanor's voice was quiet enough to stop the room. Do not call a dead woman unstable because she left proof you failed to destroy. Lady Ashcombe stared at her. For a moment, Eleanor saw something beyond pride, beyond fear, shame, then it vanished. Your mother approached my husband after our marriage, she said. She demanded recognition. She demanded truth. She threatened 2 children. Nathaniel's face changed. What children? His mother closed her eyes briefly. Your brother was an infant. I was carrying you. The room seemed to narrow. So you knew before I was born, Nathaniel said. I knew she made a claim. And father? He told me the first ceremony had no legal force. Did you believe him? She did not answer. Nathaniel laughed once, bitterly. You did not. I had nowhere to go. The admission was barely audible. My family had arranged the marriage. Your father controlled every account. I had 1 child and another coming. If her claim succeeded, your brother would be illegitimate. I would be disgraced, and we would all be dependent upon the mercy of strangers. Eleanor looked at the proud woman in black silk and saw, for the first time, the frightened young wife she must once have been. It did not excuse what followed, but it explained the shape of it. Fear passed down through families as efficiently as property. What did you do to my mother? Eleanor asked. Nothing. What did father do? Lady Ashcombe looked toward Sir Gideon. That was answer enough. Sir Gideon's smoothness faltered. The late Earl arranged a pension. For silence, Eleanor said. For stability. And when she died, the matter ended. No, Nathaniel said. The matter became a child. Lady Morrow sank into a chair as though the years had suddenly found her. Your mother begged me to take you, she told Eleanor. She was ill. She said the Ashcombes would never let you grow up free if they knew how much proof remained. She asked me to keep you hidden. Eleanor's anger shifted, not lessening but changing direction. You could have told me. And have you march into Ashcombe Hall at 18 demanding a title? You were proud, impulsive, too much like her. So you starved me of affection until I was obedient. Lady Morrow's mouth trembled. I kept you alive. You kept me manageable. I kept them from taking you. Eleanor looked around the room at the 3 older people who had each called control protection. And then you offered me to them. Lady Morrow covered her face. No one spoke. The carriage outside shifted on its springs. Somewhere in the house, a clock struck 6. Sir Gideon moved toward the table. Whatever emotional errors were made, the documents remain inconclusive. A fragment is not a testament. A private letter is not a marriage record. The ring proves nothing. Nathaniel placed his hand over it before the solicitor could reach. Then you have no reason to take it. Sir Gideon's eyes hardened. You are making a serious mistake. My family has made several. I am attempting variety. Eleanor almost laughed despite herself. Sir Gideon turned to Lady Ashcombe. We should leave. Without the ring? For now. He glanced at Eleanor. Miss Vale, before you decide to destroy 2 families in pursuit of a story your mother may have invented, consider who benefits. Not you. Society will not embrace a woman who overturns an earldom. The courts will consume years. Every private detail of your birth will be printed. You will be called liar, adventurous, blackmailer, bastard, and worse. Even if you win, you will never again enter a room without people wondering what you took to get there. Eleanor held his gaze. I entered a chapel today and watched people wonder what was wrong with me because a coward walked away. I survived it. This will be worse. Then perhaps I have been well prepared. Sir Gideon looked at Nathaniel. And you? Will you assist the woman who may strip your brother of his inheritance and your mother of her name? Nathaniel's hand remained over the ring. If the inheritance was stolen, returning it is not stripping. His mother went white. Nathaniel, truth does not become cruelty because it arrives late. Sir Gideon left first. Lady Ashcombe followed more slowly. At the door, she looked back at her son. You think yourself noble because you stand beside her today. Wait until you understand what it costs. Nathaniel's answer was quiet. I have spent my life watching this family make others pay our costs. She left. Lady Morrow remained seated, staring at the floor. Eleanor did not comfort her. Some silences were not empty. Some were the first honest consequence a person had ever been required to endure. That night, Nathaniel took Eleanor and Mara to a small dower cottage on the edge of Ashcombe Land, a house unused since his grandmother's death. My mother will search here first, Eleanor said, as the carriage climbed through bare trees. No, she will assume I take you to London. Why? Because that is what my brother would do. He mistakes distance for strategy. And you? I prefer places everyone believes beneath notice. Eleanor looked at him in the dim carriage. Like second sons. Exactly. The cottage had 4 rooms, a leaking roof, and one elderly caretaker named Mrs. Bell, who accepted Eleanor's arrival without visible surprise. She looked at the ruined wedding dress bundled in Mara's arms, looked at Nathaniel's expression, and said only, "There's soup." Eleanor nearly wept then. Not in the chapel, not in the carriage, not before her aunt. But at the offer of soup in a small warm kitchen, tears rose so suddenly she had to turn away. Mrs. Bell pretended not to notice. Kindness, Eleanor discovered, was sometimes most merciful when it did not demand gratitude. Over the next 3 days, Nathaniel searched estate records while Eleanor studied her father's ledger. They worked at opposite ends of the cottage table beneath the ring's inscription copied onto a scrap of paper between them. What is freely chosen must not be stolen. At first, the ledger appeared to contain ordinary accounts, payments for seed, coal, repairs, wages. Then Eleanor noticed that every 7th entry used a different ink. The amounts corresponded to dates rather than sums. These are references, she said. Nathaniel moved beside her. To what? Parish books, perhaps, or legal volumes. She traced one line. 12-4-63. It could mean the 12th book, 4th page, year 63. There is an old registry room beneath the chapel. Eleanor looked at him. The chapel where I was abandoned. My father enjoyed symmetry when he believed himself clever. Cruel men often do. Nathaniel did not defend him. They returned to the chapel after midnight. Mrs. Bell supplied a lantern and a crowbar without asking why. The wedding flowers still hung wilted around the altar. Eleanor paused at the place where the ring had fallen. You need not go farther, Nathaniel said. I am tired of being told where I need not go. Fair. The registry room lay behind a locked oak door in the crypt. Nathaniel opened it with an estate key. Dust covered shelves of baptismal records, burial books, marriage licenses, and correspondence from generations of clergymen. They searched until dawn. At last, Eleanor found volume 12. Page 4 had been removed, but the binding retained a narrow strip of paper bearing the final letters of two names, Vale and Ashcombe. Nathaniel stood behind her, reading over her shoulder. Someone cut it out. Recently? No. The edge has darkened. Years ago. Eleanor turned to the ledger. The next code led them to a box of clergy accounts. Inside was a payment made by Edmund Ashcombe to a Reverend Samuel Harcourt 6 months after the alleged secret wedding. The notation read, "For travel and continued discretion." "He paid the clergyman," Eleanor said. "To remain silent," Nathaniel replied. "Still not proof of the ceremony." But proof there was something to conceal. A sound came from the stairs. Nathaniel extinguished the lantern. Darkness closed around them. Footsteps descended. One person, moving carefully. Eleanor's hand found Nathaniel's sleeve. He covered it with his own. The door opened. A thin line of candlelight entered the room, followed by Lady Ashcombe. She held the candle high and looked directly toward the shelf where they stood. "Come out," she said. Nathaniel relit the lantern. His mother appeared older than she had 3 days earlier. "How did you know?" he asked. "Because your grandmother hid here when she wished to read letters your grandfather forbade her to receive. You resemble her more than you know." Eleanor held up the payment record. "Did you come to destroy this?" "If I meant to destroy it, it would have been gone 20 years ago." "Then why are you here?" Lady Ashcombe looked at the empty place where the marriage page had been removed. "Because Gideon Pell has left for the coast." Nathaniel frowned. "Why?" "Your brother is returning." Eleanor's heart contracted. "He knows where he is?" "Sir Gideon has always known." "Then the departure was planned," Nathaniel said. "Yes." "By whom?" "By your brother. By Gideon. Perhaps by others. I was told only that the wedding could not proceed once the ring had been substituted." Eleanor looked at her. "Substituted by whom?" Lady Ashcombe's eyes moved to the band on Eleanor's hand. "By me." The crypt seemed to hold its breath. "You placed it there," Eleanor said. "I arranged for the jeweler to exchange the rings before the ceremony." "Why?" "Because I was tired." Lady Ashcombe set the candle on the table. "Do not mistake that for virtue. I did not act from courage. Courage would have told the truth 20 years ago. I acted because Gideon informed me that after the marriage he intended to have your father's remaining papers destroyed and you placed under permanent legal supervision for nervous instability." Eleanor went cold. "He planned to imprison me." "Respectably," Lady Ashcombe said bitterly. "A private physician, a quiet house, letters monitored, money controlled by your husband. Your son agreed?" "My eldest son agreed to whatever Gideon told him was necessary to preserve Ashcombe." Nathaniel's face emptied. He knew. "Enough. And you let the wedding continue. I believed once you possessed the ring, I could stop the ceremony before the vows and force the matter into the open." Eleanor stared at her. "Your son stopped it first." "Not for your sake." "Why then?" "Because he discovered the settlement required him to surrender control of several estates if your claim ever became valid. He thought marriage would secure your property to him. Gideon's revised documents secured it to trustees instead." Nathaniel gave a harsh laugh. He abandoned her because the theft was not profitable enough. Yes. Eleanor closed her eyes. There it was. The final small hope that perhaps fear, guilt, or hidden affection had driven the man from the altar. Gone. He had left because he could not own enough of her. Nathaniel stepped closer, but did not touch her. He had learned already that she valued the choice. "Where is the missing marriage record?" he asked his mother. "Gideon has it." "Why keep it?" Eleanor asked. "Leverage. Your father gave him the page before his death, believing he was placing it with a neutral solicitor. Gideon used it to control both families. He could destroy the Ashcombe succession or validate it depending upon who paid, obeyed, or married whom. Then he has committed fraud for years. Among other things, Nathaniel gathered the records. "We go to the coast." "No," Lady Ashcombe said. "That is what he expects. He is bringing my brother back. He is bringing your brother to a ship. By tomorrow night, both may be beyond English jurisdiction, carrying the record with them." Eleanor looked at the candle flame. "Why take the record?" "Because Gideon no longer trusts any of us to remain silent. Then we need someone he does trust." Nathaniel understood first. "My brother." Lady Ashcombe nodded. "He believes your brother still depends upon him." "Does he?" "Until 3 days ago, completely." Eleanor opened her father's letter again. "Trust the man who returns it without asking what it is worth." Her father had given her one instruction. He had not told her to trust an entire family. He had not told her to forgive. He had pointed toward a single act freely chosen. Nathaniel had done that act. Now she would choose what came next. "We will not chase them," she said. "We will bring them back." Nathaniel looked at her. "How?" "By giving Sir Gideon the one thing he believes we all value more than truth. The inheritance." "Yes." They drafted the letter before sunrise. Eleanor wrote in her own hand that she would surrender the ring, the testament fragment, her father's ledger, and every claim upon Ashcombe in exchange for a private settlement. She requested a meeting at the chapel on the following evening, the place where the scandal had begun, and promised to come with Nathaniel alone. Lady Ashcombe added a separate note stating that Nathaniel had turned against Eleanor after learning the potential cost to his own status. "He will believe that," she said. Nathaniel's mouth twisted. "Because it is what our family would do." "Yes." The message was sent through a servant known to report to Sir Gideon. Then they waited. Waiting proved harder than pursuit. Eleanor walked the cottage garden under a sky swollen with snow. Nathaniel found her beside a frozen fountain. "You should sleep," he said. "So should you." "I have tried." "And?" "My thoughts object." She looked at him. "Do you regret helping me?" "No." "You may lose your name. A name that survives only by denying yours is not much of an inheritance." "You say that now." "I said it before I knew what the ring contained. That is why I believe you." The words left her before she could soften them. Nathaniel went still. Snow began in small, uncertain flakes. Eleanor held out her hand and watched one melt against her glove. "Why did you never marry?" she asked. An abrupt question. "We may be arrested tomorrow. I feel entitled to abruptness." "Fair." He looked toward the dark line of trees. "I was nearly engaged once." "What happened?" "My father decided her family was unsuitable. He threatened to cut off my allowance, remove me from the estate, and ruin her father's business. And you surrendered her." "I told myself." I was protecting her. Eleanor studied him. Were you? No. I was protecting myself from the cost of choosing her. He did not disguise the shame. She married someone braver. Were you heartbroken? Not enough to deserve the word. Then why have you remained alone? Because afterward I understood that affection without courage is merely a pleasant form of cowardice. The snow thickened. Eleanor thought of the chapel, the ring on the marble, the brother who had walked away, and the brother who had bent to retrieve what another man discarded. You have courage now, she said. Nathaniel looked at her. I have practice at regret. Sometimes that is how courage begins. He smiled faintly. That sounds like something Mrs. Bell would embroider on a cushion. She would charge you for the thread. They stood in silence. It was the first peaceful silence Eleanor had known since the wedding. Not empty, not watchful. Chosen. Nathaniel reached into his coat and removed the ring. He had kept it while she walked, fearing it might be lost in the snow. May I? He asked. Eleanor extended her hand. He placed the ring in her palm, not on her finger. Choice. Always choice. Tomorrow, he said. Whatever happens, do not surrender this unless you decide to. Even if it saves your family? Especially then. The next evening, the chapel looked exactly as it had before the wedding, and entirely different. The flowers had browned at the edges. Wax had hardened down the candles. The aisle remained scattered with a few white petals crushed beneath the feet of departing guests. Eleanor entered wearing a dark blue dress. Nathaniel walked beside her. Lady Ashcombe waited unseen in the vestry, with a magistrate and 2 officers whom she had persuaded to attend after presenting the payment records. Mrs. Bell and Mara remained near the side door. The plan depended upon Sir Gideon confessing enough to connect himself to the stolen marriage page. It depended even more upon his arrogance. Fortunately, arrogance was the most reliable member of the Ashcombe household. At 8 o'clock, the chapel doors opened. Sir Gideon entered first. Behind him came the vanished bridegroom. Adrian Ashcombe looked as though the past week had been expensive. His coat was wrinkled. His face was pale beneath a carefully maintained expression of boredom. Eleanor had once believed that face handsome. Now she saw only a man who had mistaken charm for character so long that no one had corrected him. His gaze moved over her. Eleanor. Adrian. You look well. You look returned. Nathaniel almost smiled. Sir Gideon carried a leather case. We need not prolong this. Miss Vale has offered terms. I have, Eleanor replied. The evidence first, Adrian said. Not an apology, not a question. The evidence. Eleanor understood then that some wounds closed not when the person who caused them repented, but when one finally saw how little power their approval deserved. She placed the fragment of testament on the altar. Nathaniel placed a copy of the ledger beside it. Sir Gideon's eyes narrowed. The original ledger. After I see the marriage record, Eleanor said, that was not agreed. Neither was my abandonment. Adrian looked away. Sir Gideon opened the leather case. Inside lay a single registry page protected between boards. He did not remove it. This proves only that a ceremony was recorded, he said. Whether it was valid remains open to argument. Then why flee with it? Nathaniel asked. Preservation. You planned to sail tonight. Adrian's gaze snapped toward Sir Gideon. You said they did not know. They are guessing. Eleanor looked at Adrian. Did you know before the wedding that my mother had married your father? He hesitated. Sir Gideon answered for him. He knew there was a possible claim. Did you know your marriage settlement would place my property under trustees? It was for your protection, Adrian said. Eleanor almost admired how easily the phrase survived from one liar to another. And when you discovered you would not control it, you left. You would not understand the pressures attached to my position. No, I understand exactly. You were willing to marry a woman you did not love if it preserved your inheritance. You were unwilling once it failed to enrich you. Adrian's face reddened. I did not say I never cared for you. You did not need to. The chapel doors opened again. Sir Gideon turned. Lady Morrow entered alone, breathless, carrying a bundle of papers. This was not part of the plan. Eleanor felt Nathaniel tense beside her. I have the ledger, Lady Morrow announced. The original. Sir Gideon smiled for the first time. Excellent. Eleanor stared at her aunt. What have you done? Lady Morrow would not meet her eyes. What I should have done years ago ended this. She crossed toward Sir Gideon and held out the bundle. He reached for it. At the last moment, she drew it back. The page first. His smile faded. Give me the ledger. You promised immunity. You will have it. In writing. This is not the time. It is precisely the time. Her hands shook. I kept the girl. I lied for you. I refused every position that would have allowed her to leave my house. I delivered her to the marriage you designed. I will not go to prison because you have suddenly lost control. Sir Gideon's face changed. Not much. Enough. You foolish woman! Yes, Lady Morrow said. For 20 years! She turned and threw the ledger toward Eleanor. Sir Gideon lunged. Nathaniel stepped between them. The leather case fell. The registry page slid across the altar steps and landed exactly where the wedding ring had fallen days earlier. Adrian moved first. He seized the page. No one leaves, he said. Everyone stared at him. The weak, charming, unreliable elder brother stood holding the document that could unmake his inheritance. Sir Gideon extended his hand. Give it to me. Adrian looked at the page, then at Eleanor. If this is accepted, what happens to the title? Nathaniel answered. The court decides whether father's later marriage was valid. You may lose everything attached to being his legitimate heir. Adrian swallowed. And you? The same. Yet you help her. Yes. Why? Nathaniel looked at Eleanor, then back at his brother. Because it is hers. Adrian laughed, but the sound broke in the middle. You always wanted to be better than me. No, I wanted you to be better than this. Sir Gideon stepped closer. Adrian, listen carefully. Give me the page and this matter ends. The woman has no proof. Your position remains secure. Your debts are covered. The ship leaves in 2 hours. Eleanor watched Adrian's face. For the first time, she saw fear without charm wrapped around it. He looked toward the open chapel doors. Freedom waited there, or escape. Perhaps to him, they had always been the same thing. Then his gaze dropped to the marble floor. I heard the ring fall, he said quietly. No one moved. When I walked away, I heard it strike the step. I thought Nathaniel would pick it up. He always picks up what I leave behind. Nathaniel's face tightened. Adrian looked at Eleanor. I knew he cared for you. The words entered the chapel like cold air. Eleanor turned toward Nathaniel. He did not deny them. Adrian continued, speaking faster now, as though the truth had broken through a door and would not stop. I knew before the engagement. He never said it. He did not need to. He watched you when you spoke. He remembered things you liked. He argued against the settlement. I thought it amusing. The quiet brother in love with the woman I was going to marry. Eleanor's heart beat painfully. Nathaniel looked at his brother with something close to disgust. This is not the moment. It is exactly the moment, Adrian said. You want truth. Have all of it. I left because Gideon told me the marriage would trap me. Because Mother was lying. Because the estate is drowning. Because I was afraid. But I also left because I knew if I dropped that ring, Nathaniel would bend for it. He would bend for her. He always does what I cannot. The confession was not noble. It did not redeem him. But for once it was honest. Sir Gideon's patience ended. He reached inside his coat. Nathaniel saw the movement and pushed Eleanor behind him. An officer emerged from the vestry. Remove your hand slowly, Sir Gideon. The solicitor froze. Lady Ashcombe stepped into view beside the magistrate. Adrian stared at his mother. You brought them. Yes. Against me? Against the man who taught us all to call fear protection. Sir Gideon's composure shattered. You stupid, ungrateful people. Do you imagine truth will save any of you? Truth will tear this family apart. Eleanor stepped from behind Nathaniel. It was already torn apart. Truth is only turning on the light. The officers took Sir Gideon's weapon and the leather case. Adrian handed the registry page to the magistrate. His fingers lingered on it before he released it. 20 years of status passed from his hand in one sheet of paper. He looked at Eleanor. I am sorry. She believed he meant it in that moment. She also understood that sorrow after exposure was not the same as courage before harm. I hope one day you become someone for whom those words cost more than speaking them, she said. Adrian lowered his eyes. The legal proceedings lasted 9 months. Society consumed every detail exactly as Sir Gideon had predicted. Eleanor was called ambitious, fraudulent, tragic, calculating, brave, dangerous, and beautiful, though no one had thought to call her beautiful before her claim became interesting. The marriage record was authenticated. Reverend Harcourt's grandson produced letters proving the ceremony had occurred and that Edmund Ashcombe had paid for silence after abandoning Beatrice. The hidden testament was found in full among documents Sir Gideon kept in a private bank vault. It granted Eleanor significant property in her own right, but did not automatically transfer the title. The question of succession grew complicated enough to feed lawyers for years. Eleanor surprised everyone by refusing to pursue the earldom. I do not want a title built from 2 women's suffering, she told the court. I want what my mother intended me to possess freely. She accepted the eastern lands, the river mills, and the income stolen from her since childhood. A portion was used to repay workers whose wages had been reduced, while the Ashcombe family pretended prosperity. Another portion established a legal trust for women whose inheritances were controlled through forced marriage settlements. Society called this radical until several powerful widows joined her, at which point society called it fashionable. Sir Gideon was convicted of fraud, blackmail, theft, and conspiracy. Lady Morrow avoided prison by testifying, but Eleanor did not return to Bracken House. Their final conversation occurred in the same morning room where the truth had first been confronted. Lady Morrow looked smaller without authority. Will you ever forgive me? she asked. Eleanor considered the question. I may understand you one day. That is not forgiveness. No, I did love you. Eleanor's eyes filled, though her voice remained steady. You loved me as long as loving me meant keeping me afraid. Lady Morrow wept then. Eleanor did not. She left without cruelty and without comfort. Some doors closed quietly because slamming them would still grant the room too much importance. Lady Ashcombe surrendered control of the estate accounts and moved to the dower house. She and Eleanor developed no easy affection. Too much stood between them. But they began, slowly, to speak without lies. Once a month, Lady Ashcombe visited the school Eleanor established near the mills. She never stayed long. She always brought books. Adrian lost the immediate right to several properties, but retained a smaller independent income through his mother's settlement. He went abroad, as he had first claimed, though this time no solicitor arranged his path. For nearly a year, no one heard from him. Then Nathaniel received a letter from a hospital in a distant port where Adrian had begun working as an administrator, because as he wrote, it was the first position anyone had ever offered him that required usefulness rather than charm. Nathaniel did not show the letter to Eleanor until she asked. She read it and returned it. Do you think he has changed? She said. I think he has begun. Is that enough? For today. Nathaniel himself gave up the expectations of inheriting Ashcombe. He remained at the estate during the proceedings, dismissed corrupt agents, opened the ledgers to tenants, and sold 3 carriages to cover unpaid wages. His mother called the gesture theatrical. The workers called it overdue. Eleanor saw him often because their lands shared a boundary, and because he always seemed to discover estate matters requiring discussion at precisely the hour she took tea. For months, neither spoke of Adrian's confession in the chapel. Nathaniel's affection remained what it had always been. Present, careful, asking nothing. That caution, once a mark of honor, began to irritate her. One autumn afternoon, nearly a year after the abandoned wedding, Eleanor found him beside the river inspecting repairs to a mill wheel. Rain had begun. He held an umbrella over a ledger instead of himself. That is the most Nathaniel thing I have ever seen, she said. He looked up, wet-haired and startled. The figures will run. So will you, apparently, whenever a conversation becomes personal. He closed the ledger. Have I done that? Repeatedly. I thought I was giving you space. You have given me an entire county. You required freedom. Freedom is not the absence of every human being who cares for me. He became very still. The rain struck the river in silver lines. Eleanor. No. You have been patient long enough. Now I will be direct. She reached into her coat pocket and removed the plain gold ring. Nathaniel stared at it. She had not worn it since the chapel. This ring was meant to trap me, she said. Then it told me the truth. It belonged to my mother, though not in the way anyone believed. It passed through your family's hands. My father's fear, my aunt's silence, your mother's regret, and your brother's cowardice. Nathaniel said nothing. But the moment that made it mine, Eleanor continued, was when you picked it up and returned it without asking what it was worth. His eyes met hers. Your father's letter said that. My father's letter helped me trust you. It did not make me love you. The rain seemed to stop, though it had not. Nathaniel's face changed with painful slowness. Hope was harder for him than duty. Do you? He asked. Yes. He closed his eyes briefly. I have loved you for years. I know. Adrian should not have told you. No, you should have. You were engaged to my brother. I am not now. You had just survived a public humiliation. It has been a year. You were rebuilding your life. I have rebuilt it. She stepped closer and placed the ring in his palm. His fingers closed around it exactly as they had at the altar. Eleanor, he said, I will not ask you to wear the ring that was used to control you. Good. Good? You are going to have it melted. He blinked. Am I? Yes. Into 2 rings. Plain ones. No family crest. No inherited diamonds. No hidden paper. And the inscription? She smiled. Keep it. Nathaniel looked down at the ring. What is freely chosen must not be stolen. Are you proposing to me? He asked. I am instructing you to commission jewelry. Do not become vain. He laughed then, the surprised, unguarded laugh she had heard too rarely. Eleanor Vale, will you marry me? She looked at the river, the mill, the land that was finally hers, and the man who had never once confused love with ownership. Yes, she said, but not because you rescued me. I know. Not because your name repairs mine. Your name has repaired ours. And not because you picked up the ring. Nathaniel stepped beneath the umbrella with her. Why then? Eleanor placed her hand against his cheek. Because you gave it back. They married in the same chapel on the first clear morning of spring. There were no 200 guests, no politicians, no reporters, no arrangements made for property. Mrs. Bell sat in the front pew beside Mara. Lady Ashcombe attended in grey and wept without hiding it. Lady Morrow received an invitation, but did not come. Adrian sent a letter from abroad and a small carved box with no explanation. Inside were the original wedding gloves Eleanor had left behind on the morning he fled. She did not wear them. She kept them as one keeps a scar after it has stopped hurting, not from affection for the wound, but as proof of survival. At the altar, Nathaniel held one of the new rings. The old gold had been divided, polished, and remade. Inside each band, the same words remained. What is freely chosen must not be stolen. The clergyman asked whether Nathaniel would take Eleanor as his lawful wife. I will, he said. Then the question was asked of her. Eleanor looked down the aisle. She remembered walking it alone beneath the eyes of people who had mistaken abandonment for defeat. She remembered the ring striking marble. She remembered Nathaniel bending when everyone else remained upright. He had not picked up a discarded bride. He had picked up the truth someone else tried to throw away. I will, she said. Nathaniel slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Outside, the chapel bells began to ring. The sound traveled over the river, the mills, the eastern fields, Bracken House, Ashcombe Hall, and every place where silence had once been mistaken for peace. Eleanor walked down the aisle again. This time she was not alone. At the chapel steps, Nathaniel paused and looked at the place where the old ring had fallen a year earlier. What is it? She asked. I was thinking of my brother. Eleanor followed his gaze. He left me at the altar. Yes. And you picked up the ring. Nathaniel looked at her. I would pick it up again. Eleanor took his hand. You will not need to. Then they stepped into the spring light together, carrying no stolen future, no borrowed name, and no promise made from fear. Only what had been freely chosen.